Okay, let's think about this for a second. When an AI makes a stock trade, denies you a loan, or even makes a medical diagnosis, who's responsible? The scary part is that right now, in most organizations, the answer is, well, nobody can actually prove it. We're living through this huge, invisible crisis of accountability, and it's all happening way faster than any of us can track. So let's dive into how we got here and what we can do about it.
Do you know, the source document we're looking at today opens with this line, and it just hits so hard. It frames the whole problem perfectly. This isn't just some technical issue with software logs, right? This is a fundamental challenge to the very idea of responsibility in a world that's increasingly run by autonomous systems.
And make no mistake, this problem is already here. A jaw-dropping 72% of enterprises are deploying these agentic AI systems with absolutely no formal governance model in place. Just let that sink in. This isn't some far-off risk we need to worry about later. It's a massive system-wide vulnerability that's happening right now. And it gets even more complicated when you factor in speed. A full 81% of companies have no governance specifically for machine-to-machine interactions. I mean, we're talking about decisions being made at a velocity that a human literally can't follow, let alone approve. That creates a gigantic blind spot. And this has real-world consequences. It translates directly to failure. Back in 2023, 63% of organizations that got breached had no formal AI governance policy. The connection couldn't be clearer. This governance gap is basically an open door for all kinds of operational and security disasters. So the problem is pretty clear. The big question is, how do we fix it? In this explainer, we're going to walk through a new conceptual architecture that's designed to solve this exact problem. We'll look at the core crisis, the proposed solution, this three-layer stack. We'll even cover its documented flaws, a practical test you can use yourself, and finally, we'll talk about the critical choice that we all have to face. All right, so the fundamental issue we're facing isn't really about what an AI does wrong. We've got logs for that. The real crisis is our inability to prove with legal certainty who or what actually authorized that action. Was it a person, an AI agent, some kind of hybrid? If you can't prove that, accountability just vanishes. Okay, so this is the core idea, the big shift. Current frameworks, even the big international standards like ISO 42001, they're all designed to govern systems. They ask, is our AI working the way we designed it to? But that's just not enough anymore. We have to change our focus from governing the systems to governing the actors, whether they're human, synthetic, or a mix of both, that are operating inside those systems. This slide just lays it out so clearly. On the left, that's where we are now, pre-identity governance. It can tell you that something happened. Big deal. But on the right, that's post-identity governance. It's built from the ground up to prove who authorized something, when they were authorized, and for what specific scope. You see? It stops asking about dusty policies on a shelf and starts demanding provable answers about what's happening in the real world. So what's the solution look like? Well, the source material proposes this conceptual architecture called the Post-Identity Governance Framework, or PIGF for short. And at its heart, it's a three-layer stack designed to build accountability right into the DNA of our digital world. Now, it's really important to get this. This is a human-led design. The architect, Sourav Maulik, he's not writing code. He's designing the institutional architecture to solve a governance problem that technology created but can't solve on its own. This is all about human foresight shaping our technological future, not the other way around. The framework itself is built on three really simple logical layers. You can kind of think of it as a prove-it model for accountability. First, you have to prove existence. Then, you prove authority. And finally, you prove the action with evidence. Each step has to happen before you can move on to the next. It's that simple. So layer one is the foundation. You have to prove existence. Before anything can do anything, the system needs cryptographic proof of what it is. Is it a person? Is it an AI agent? Getting this classification right is absolutely everything, because the entire accountability structure depends on it. Personal liability for a human, deployer liability for an AI agent. Okay, so once we've proven who or what is acting, we move up to the next layer, proving authority. And this isn't just about general system access, what you can do. This is about contextual permission, what you are allowed to do right here, right now. For example, an agent might have access to an entire financial system, but only have the authority to approve a transaction under $100. Pigforf demands that this authority gets verified at the exact moment of the action.
And finally, layer 3, proving it all with evidence. Now, most organizations think they have this covered because, well, they have logs. But logs can be argued with, they can be tampered with. The framework makes this killer distinction. In court, reconstructions from logs are arguments. Anchored evidence is proof. This layer is all about creating that proof, an unchangeable, legally sound record of the action, the actor, and their authority at that precise moment.
Now, this is not some perfect, finished solution that's ready to go. And honestly, what I find so compelling about this whole project is its radical transparency. The architect isn't trying to hide the flaws. He's documenting them as a sign of intellectual honesty. And really, it's an open invitation for experts to come in and help solve them. So you might be asking, is this a finished product? Is it ready to deploy? The framework itself asks this question directly, and the answer is a very clear, very honest no.
The latest version explicitly documents 9 known gaps. It actually started with 6, but then they stress-tested it against major security frameworks like the OWASP checklist, which is a huge standard for web app security, and that process revealed 3 more. And of these 9, 4 of them are still what they call open problems. These aren't easy fixes. They require outside expertise from legal and security specialists to solve. So here are the 3 newest gaps they found just by mapping the framework against that security checklist. For example, Gap 7 shows the framework didn't have a model for how a hacker might try to attack the governance layer itself. Gap 8 points out that the framework is static. It doesn't consider what happens when an AI model gets updated or taken offline. This whole process of finding and documenting gaps is exactly how the architecture gets stronger. So this is all great in theory, but how can you actually use this framework? Well, the source gives us a really simple but incredibly powerful diagnostic tool. It's a 3-question test you can apply to any autonomous system to see if it's genuinely governance ready. First question, can you prove who or what initiated the action? And look, a weak answer is the system authenticated the request. That's not good enough. A good answer needs a cryptographically verified actor identity, one that's classified as human or synthetic and anchored at the moment of the action. This, of course, ties right back to layer 1, existence. Second question, were they authorized? And not just in a general sense. Were they authorized for this specific action, in this specific context, at this exact time? Just saying, oh, they had access, is not an answer. You need a verifiable permission record, and that, of course, is layer 2, authority. And the final and most critical question, can you prove the first 2 answers in a court of law? This is the ultimate test, the bottom line. We have logs is not proof. You need immutable anchored evidence records. And that's the whole point of layer 3, evidence. If you can't say yes to all 3 of these questions, you've got a governance gap, period. And this all leads us to a really critical point. Building this new layer of accountability, this infrastructure, it isn't just going to happen on its own. It's a societal choice about the kind of digital world we actually want to live in. And we'll end on this powerful thought from the framework itself. This infrastructure is going to be built. There's no doubt about that. The only question is whether it gets built by institutions and civil society on the terms of accountability and human rights, or if it's built by massive platforms and states on the terms of surveillance and control. That's the choice we have to make.